Hi, continuing on from our last video in which we added an additional level and ceiling objects into our drawing. As a reminder, we've imported our CAD drawing, we've added the building elements, so the walls, doors and windows, and a 3D view to show that. How we made this a bit more user-friendly going forward is we added a ceiling level. So if we look at the elevation, there's a third level here called ceiling. And this allowed us then to make sure our ceiling objects all link to the same height throughout our building. At this point, we're going to start using the ceiling objects, the ceiling view, to make sure we can place fire alarm devices appropriately. So when we're using Revit, there's a number of pre-installed libraries that your package might point to already. So the different installations might have different packages installed and different families or libraries. So for example, under electrical, there's cable tray, conduit, wires, and so on, electrical equipment. But one of the options that we were looking to use is called fire alarm. So under device, fire alarm. Now, if you don't have that in your view already, you're going to have to import it. So the first step of this video is how do we actually import that? So under our insert tab, just where we imported our CAD drawing as well, we're going to go here to load Autodesk family. So a family is a file containing descriptions of objects we can use. So you can either load it from a file that you have on your own computer or pull them down from the Autodesk server. So we'll do that. I'm already logged into mine, but it will ask you to log in with your student credentials otherwise. Now, you'll see here there's a number of different things that can be imported, but to speed up the process, if you put in fire or fire alarm, a number of different options show up as available for download. I've put in fire here, and if we look on the left, under electrical, MEP, info, and communications, fire alarm is one of the options. There's also fire protection, so cabinets, connections, sprinklers, and valves, but for this, fire alarm will do. And the objects that come in this package are the break glass unit or the manual call point, a fire alarm panel where you have all your devices wired back to, a sounder for indicating to a person that there is a fire alarm active, and that's an audible siren, a fixed temperature heat detector, and finally a smoke alarm. So these are detectors, sounders, panel, and manual call points. So I've already loaded them, but if you haven't, you would select them all like so and load those directly into your program. Okay, so like I said, these will be under systems, electrical, device, and fire alarm along here. So along the left here, emergency pull cord, break glass unit, sounder, heat detector, and smoke alarm. So in the previous video, I showed you that we could import a ceiling object in here. And the reason we wanted to do that is specifically for the likes of the heat detectors, smoke alarms, and sounders, they will more than likely be mounted on a ceiling. So without having a ceiling object in it, it would be very hard to mount them properly in this drawing. So I'm going to select smoke alarm from my options, the standard smoke alarm. And you'll see here now when I hover over the ceiling object, it places it on a grid, which is kind of useful for spacing as well, because you'll have to ensure you have your dimensions correct to make sure you have correct coverage with all your smoke detectors. Now, you can see here in the ceiling view, which I'm in at the moment, when I hover over a part that does not have a ceiling, I'm not in a position to actually attach it to anything. So that's the advantage of actually putting in the ceiling objects first at a certain level. We can see here, if we go to a 3D view and try to insert a fire alarm device, such as the smoke alarm, we can still do it in this view. But the issue is If we place it here, it's not being placed on a ceiling. In fact, it'll be placed on the floor because it's looking at a different type of view. So that's why it's useful to use the ceiling views for when you're placing stuff on ceilings. So for instance, I'll put one smoke alarm here just to demonstrate, another one here, another one here, another one here. So this is by no means a correct layout, it's just a layout to use. And when we zoom in on it, we can see here it has a symbol SD for smoke detector, a circle. And if we do an elevation view at this point, we can see that because we've gone into ceiling view and put the devices in originally, they're actually placed on the ceiling level automatically. So kind of to demonstrate how that might be problematic if you don't do that, is if we go to a 3D view and we place a smoke detector, let's say in the middle of the room here. It might look like it's placed on the ceiling, but if we go to our side view here, the smoke detector that we place the extra one is not actually placed on the ceiling. It's actually placed a small bit above it, but it's still scheduled. Its level, or the constraint of it, it's still off of level 0, and it's been put at kind of a random height. So I'll delete that because that's incorrect. Whereas the ones we placed in the ceiling view, they're gone to level 0, and it automatically knows the ceiling height is at 3000, which is what we defined over here. I move those. Yeah, and as we adjust the ceiling height, if we had to, all the devices linked to that ceiling move as well. So you can see all the smoke detectors moving with it. So this process will ensure that when you are placing devices, that they're placed at the appropriate location. Now, so just to recap, at this point, we've learned how to, or in this video, we've learned the difference between placing devices on a ceiling using the ceiling view or the three-dimensional view, which is useful for viewing the drawing but not useful for placing items. And we've learned how to load in Autodesk families, specifically the fire alarm device. Okay, thank you very much.